Meeting of the Southwest Licking Board of Education to order. It is June 16th in the Board of Education meeting room. I'd like to recognize all of our visitors in the room as well as online. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Jones, would you please call roll?
Mrs. Engel.
Here.
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here.
Mr. Ziny. Mrs. Spindler.
Here. We have a quorum. We can continue. We have Mr. Ford as our public participation. And you know the drill, I assume?
I always know the drill. I'm going to pass this, so I just have one copy. It's for you guys to share.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Corey Ford. I live at 701 Osborne Drive, Pataskala, Ohio, and I am here as a father. No joke tonight, sorry. I believe the district has been the victim of an entire student directory data breach. Circulated among you now are two slides that were posted on EduPeak Solutions website. The information on that publicly available website shows that data likely came from our student directory. While partially redacted, these slides showed this private non-for-profit consultation firm likely had access to student ID numbers, full names, birth dates, graduating cohorts, quarterly grades, GPAs, and everything all the way down to photos of our children. EduPeak Solutions website indicates they had this information on February 14th, 15th, and 16th, and presented it to the Ohio Education Technology Conference to advertise their services. Board Policy KKA was read a second time and adopted on February 23rd, after that date. This means that this private for-profit firm likely had this information prior to the policy change that 4 of you voted for, that authorized our children's data to be farmed out to private profit entities without the same notification you would provide parents about military recruiters. Even as a military recruiter, I didn't get this much information, and I had a security clearance because I dealt with social security numbers in order to enlist people into the military. One may argue that the parents of the children whose data was partially exposed granted this firm permission to use it. Unfortunately, the details of the firm's knowledge of who to ask indicates that this information could only have been accessed through the district's data portal. If this is the case, it indicates that an employee of the district was accessing this information to supply it to a company in their official capacity in the district. This would be a blatant violation of Policy KKA at the time. Policy KKA rushed through, Policy KKA rushed through so that this for-profit firm could use the student directory information to market its product to the February conference? Did a staff member use their access to our student directory to provide private information to our children in this community? How many firms have access to our children's information? How much information do they need? F, is it expected that everyone requesting my student's information will get a current yearbook photo of her? Did our community pay a district employee a salary to give away protected student information? Did we grant a consulting firm unfettered access to the intranet? Who all knew that this was going on? I respectfully request an investigation into the possible misuse and distribution of student directory information. I also request that you investigate how EduPeak Solutions may have obtained protected information from the district. I also request that you send a letter to this and any other firm that may have obtained our district student information to preserve it. Given how EduPeak uses information it has obtained, I strongly recommend you do not contract with them now or in the future. Lastly, and most importantly, I request that you bring Policy KKA back up and amend it so that our students are protected from data mining and cronyism. And with that, I will take any questions. No, let me reinforce then, since I've got some time, that this information was potentially given out in an advertisement at an Ohio conference downtown on February 14th, 15th, and 16th. Our policy KKA at the time said we do not share this information with for-profit companies.
were the dates again? February.
The dates of the conference, according to the website on EduPeak Solutions, was the 14th, 15th, and 16th. You can look at a schedule that was posted by the Ohio Education Technology Conferences. They said that their conference ran in Central Ohio from the 14th, 15th, and 16th. This policy wasn't approved until February 23rd. I'd like to thank one board member that voted no to it every time it came up. All right, with that, I will
Okay.
yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. Item 1E, adoption of agenda.
Motion adoption of agenda?
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Motion is adopted as printed. Item 2A, we have a retirement presentation for Mr. Kirk, and Miss Elder, I believe, is going to speak.
Well, come on, Rob. Kurth, you got to come forward. You got to come up. Come on.
One of the harder for me and you. So first thing, I looked up in the year we met, and I found a picture of the year we met, and just so everybody knows how long it's actually been.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, my name is Chandra Elder. I'd like to say a few words. I'm sure I cannot even begin to express the impact.
Yeah. She has to use the mic or people
Yes.
online can't hear.
I'm sure I cannot even begin to express the impact Mark Kurth has had on his students and athletes and the legacy he has built at Watkins. But here goes. Mark Kurth was and still is a dedicated wrestling coach that has influenced tons of athletes throughout his career. But I was never coordinated enough to be a wrestler, so you will have to find someone else to talk about that part of his life. For those of you who don't know him very well, most of us simply call him Kurt. I could never call him Mark, because for me it began back in the year 2000 when I was just a sophomore in high school. I try not to tell him because I don't want it to go to his head, but Mr. Kurth was most people's favorite teacher, and he was definitely mine. Sure, he was good at explaining math in a way that no one else ever could, but he also made us enjoy math, which I can tell you from experience is a very difficult thing to do. He treated us like real people, he didn't pretend to be someone he wasn't, and most of all, we had fun. Other than the crazy difficult math he was making us learn, he was the teacher that everyone wanted to have. Sometimes he would roast people in the middle of class, but only when they deserved it. No one was ever surprised to see him wrestling kids in the middle of class, or even in the cafeteria for that matter. You were almost always guaranteed to see erasers filled with chalk dust flying across the room at certain kids who were probably just complaining about the enormous amount of work that he assigned, which most of us were going to just cheat on anyway. And sometimes he would even just shut the door and say, "Let's talk," if he could tell there was an issue that we just needed to talk about. My most distinct memory occurred on a random Tuesday. The date was September 11th, 2001, and we were sitting in Mr. Kurth's room, watching the tragic events on TV. Most kids were scared, but we felt safe to be with Kurth. He kept us calm and even joined in when we held hands and prayed. In that moment, he didn't try to be a teacher. He didn't try to tell us what to do. He just needed to be there for us, and he was. Somehow the stars aligned, and I was lucky enough to have him as my math teacher for 3 years in a row and during my last 3 years of high school. So when people wonder what's wrong with me, now you have a bit of an idea.
She probably looked at me and said, I can do a lot better.
Even though he never chose me for Math Student of the Year, which I clearly deserved for having put up with him for 3 years in a row, he is the one who inspired me and so many others to become a math teacher. Fast forward 5 years, and I was fortunate enough to come back to work at Watkins Memorial, and guess who was on my interview committee? Kurth. For many, it would be weird being a coworker with several former teachers, but Kurth made the transition easy because he was still the same old Kurth who believed in me, just much, much older, as I frequently remind him. Sure, Kurth impacted the lives of many of his students throughout his teaching and coaching career, but I think his best work started in the fall of 2014 when he decided to become our Dean of Students. He went from teaching the best and the brightest to having to deal with discipline and kids who struggle with behavior. He finally had a chance to really impact the lives of the kids who needed it most. You would think kids who get in trouble would hate him, but just like we did 23 years ago, they all love him. He gets to know them, treats them like people, and for some, he is their most trusted adult in the whole world. Thank you, Kurth, for the past 23 years. Thank you for being the best teacher ever, for always being there to listen to me vent, for telling me all your hunting stories, for baking us wonderful pecan pies, for always interrupting my classes so that you could teach math one more time, for letting me joke around with you, and for always being way older than me. I hope you finally take the time to relax and pursue your hobbies. You can now trade in all those crazy ties and go milk all the cows and bake all the pies you want. I just hope that leaving discipline, paperwork, and lunch duty behind is worth it, because you are leaving a hole at Watkins that can never be filled. Happy retirement.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Should we get a picture?
Yeah.
Let's get a picture. Maybe Chandra and Kurth and Kathy and anybody else from high school wants to be in it, or whoever. Who wants to take the picture? Dan? Dan, you want to take it? Okay. Yeah, put that picture in there.
Abatement was this section over here, but it's across the road, but I don't know if that's,
Just
that seems big, pretty big space there.
it does. Kathy. Yeah. You can leave.
If you guys want to stay, you're welcome to, but you're also welcome to not stay. Celebration.
Not you, Tan. Tan.
Celebrations to attend, that is your choice. Okay, so item 2B, bullying, harassment, restraint, and seclusion semi-annual report.
That's me, Mr. Davis.
All right, as Rick Jones would say, it's a pretty standard semester here. Did you guys get a copy of the numbers?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
on our screen here.
Perfect, so you can see that. So yeah, really, we noted, we did have some seclusions, the same student, we had some safety issues. Obviously, can't go into detail about any specific situation. Some of these are hard from one year to the next to see why they'd be high in one area, be low in one area. Some incidences, might be one bus incident reported by 7 students, for example. So unless you guys have any specific questions, that's all I've got tonight. I will add one more thing. So we took a big batch of our administrators and counselors through restorative practice training last year. We've got another batch from the middle school going through this summer. So those are more of like your circles. So when a student is a victim of another student, we always try to bring them together, talk through the situation, but it's a very, it sounds easy, but it's a very structured process. So we're always bringing more of our admin and counseling team in for that as well. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Item 3, request to speak on agenda items. Do we have anyone from Teamsters 413 or Southwest Licking Education Association?
No, thank you.
Oh, hi. Okay, item 4, approval of minutes.
Motion approval of minutes.
Second?
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 5A, financial report.
Motion approval.
Second?
Included the agenda is the executive summary for May 31st. Only 1 month left in our fiscal year. Again, as Dan beat me to it already, it's a fairly routine month. We did receive our second or final homestead and rollback settlement, which is about $20,000 more than we anticipated. Again, we're running very well. Our receipts are about 4% higher than we anticipated, and our expenditures are still 1% below. So we're running about $2.6 million better than we anticipated at this time. So with 1 month to go, I don't expect any substantial changes this last month. So doing very well. Be glad to answer any questions you have.
Been trying to follow some of what, Senate to House to Senate to House to committee and so on and so forth. Are you seeing any, are they still staying at 2020 levels in the last batch?
Last time I know, but they just did a substitute bill, and as far as I know, it's still the
Yep.
same. It's still within
Same.
that 2022 values.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Senate was talking about doing away with some guarantees and stuff. I don't know exactly what those are. But we're getting close. Fiscal year ends in 2 weeks, so they have to get it in place and get the conference committee together and then get to the governor before July 1st. And so we should know fairly soon where we're going to be at.
Yeah. I don't see changes.
I don't see anything major. No.
Football field fences on here. Is it going to be ready by?
It is. I was going to talk about that tonight.
Okay.
Yes, it will.
All
No,
right.
you can, but it will. Yes.
All right.
Okay, item 6, personnel consent. We have items.
Kathy, can we do the
Oh,
vote real
sorry,
quick?
my bad.
You're good.
It's been a long week.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Now, item 6, A through K.
Motion approval 6A through K.
Second?
Dr. Perkins?
So the only thing I wanted to point out tonight was that Joel Baker, who is here tonight to introduce you guys, will be the new assistant principal. He's coming from Taze Valley. He'll be replacing Mark Kurth. So big shoes to fill, as you just heard there this evening. No pressure. So we're really excited to have Joel, and I think he's going to make a great addition to the team. So
Welcome. Welcome. Any other comments? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 7A, volunteer personnel.
Motion approval 7A.
Second?
Sketchy dude.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Abstain.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 8, we have A through G. Do we need to pull anything out?
Probably can approve together.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine with it together.
Motion 8A through G?
Second.
So we'll kind of run through them here between Rick and I. So the first one, the resolution of impracticality, that's just normal for transportation, as always. So nothing noteworthy. We have actually three overnight trips. DC is moving to May of next year. They've been going back and forth with that for a while now, so that'll be a new change, and I think it's better timing, and I think it's all around. It's a good time after testing, and it takes a little bit. It was spring break before too, so there's always some conflicts with that. So I appreciate the change. I think parents will like it as well. And
They
then we
leave
have-
on graduation.
You what?
They leave on the day of graduation.
graduation.
Just so you know, because I'm going to go with.
Okay. We have 2 overnight volleyball trips this summer, obviously just for your approval. The ELC playground, we've been working on this for a very long time, so we're excited to finally bring this to you to be able to have a soft surface playground that's appropriate for our ELC students. So I
Can I mention
believe
something? This was already previously approved, but the soft surface was added.
more,
So
additional
more, yeah,
space.
so
Oh,
more,
okay.
so it's a higher cost, so, but you had already originally approved it, we just added some more soft surface, that's why the price increased.
Yes, thank you. And that's
Very
going to be done
exciting.
when, Dan, too? Is that October, we think?
Yeah, that's
The fall.
Okay.
Okay.
By the fall? Is that what it's- okay,
That's what
yeah.
they're saying, so it should be really nice for the kids. Agreement for latchkey and preschool, that's standard. Do you want to, is there anything to talk about, Rick, with the sports med?
No, again, it's just renewing our contract with Nationwide Children's Hospital. That was recommended by Mr. Perkins, our AD. So that's the contract. For the first year, it's the same price has been, $45,000. Then I think the second, fourth, the sixth, it goes up 3% each year. Well, each of those years, but it's not every year. So it's, again, it's the same thing we've been doing.
My family's a frequent flyer, and they are really good.
Good.
They do a really good job.
Yes, they do.
And then the last one, we wanted to bring the additional classrooms for you. Obviously, you know, we've been working with the OFCC and trying to iron out some kinks in the process of whether we could add the additional classrooms on as a PR. So we think we're to a point where, based on the costs, that everyone's going to approve that and we can move forward. So we want to bring it to you ahead of time. So if the board does approve this cost, which will be within our budget based on the initial bid on the building, we can get going then and add it on. I don't know if you want to add on that, Rick, or?
Yeah, just the number, I think it's high. We just want to put a little, we're hoping the number will be closer to 3 million. We'll know, should have a better idea tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be submitted tomorrow, the pricing.
Okay.
You know, the OFCC had some concerns with it, and we said basically if it comes in way high, I'm not going to recommend it either. If it's going to be too high, too expensive, that we get cheaper bidding it out, then it'd be better, but we don't believe we can. We believe Pepper does a good job, and they'll give us good pricing, we believe. So we'll know better once Garmin Miller reviews the pricing and how that is, but just trying to make this faster.
Can you remind me again how much the initial, we were under?
We were under by $4.2 million, plus there's another $500,000 in there for, in case the price was over, so it's really closer to 4.7 million.
Okay.
So
Still some.
there's still like,
little bit.
yeah, a million there.
I'm sure there
So
won't be by the time it's done.
Right.
But, you know.
no, yeah. So it's but we're hoping it's way under this 3.7. It's closer to 3 million or
Okay. And it's 8.
8. Yeah,
which
up
is-
to 8. That's what up to 8. So we haven't seen
That's
the guys.
phenomenal.
Yeah, that's
So we should have our answer tomorrow.
We'll maybe have pricing tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
Garmin Miller needs to review the pricing and make sure it's very close to what the bid. You know, if they came in with significantly higher pricing, I don't think the state's going to approve it, and we probably wouldn't either. So, but we'll hopefully have an idea what the bid is tomorrow, and then hopefully early next week we'll know.
Assuming everything, never mind, it's a different thing.
So when are they going to break ground?
So,
That was what I was
so
going to get
I
with.
was going
It's
to
a
talk about it too.
different
So we
thing.
can talk
No,
about
no,
that
no,
now.
we
No,
can-
it's fine. We
we'll
can
wait.
talk about it now.
It's all about the same building. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. So obviously we've been working on some things behind the scenes trying to get the permits. So, and having a conversation today, earlier today with Chris Harkness, that seemed to help motivate and move things along. So we did receive the Kirkersville from Brad Mercer this afternoon. And in the email, when he had some correspondence back and forth, he said he anticipates having everything finalized, which is kind of needed by tomorrow, for the new elementary. So bearing we get that tomorrow, we should be good to go.
Yeah, the state wants to issue. What the state wants to do is issue a contract, notice to proceed, and the PR change order all at the same time.
Okay.
So there's no delay,
Yeah.
and they get to breaking ground. Pepper's ready to go.
Good.
Construction, they're anxious to get started.
Guessing
So
they have more work after us. But they-
yeah, well, yeah, but they just seem like they're tired of sitting still.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get moving on the project. They know how important it is for us.
And refresh my memory, we're going to shut down the driveway that drives back to the track?
The third driveway.
Yes.
Yes, that will be part of the construction project. That'll be the road they bring materials and stuff in on.
temporarily, also the other one, I think, I heard.
Which other one?
The one between the middle school and the field between the middle school.
Oh, where the
and-
playground's at?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
it's
because-
already shut down.
Yeah, because the
right?
playground.
So the
yeah.
only entrance will be the stoplight entrance. Yeah.
So football
It'll
season will be a little
growing
chaotic,
pains,
but
it'll be fine.
it'll be okay.
Yeah, it's
It's a couple of,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
full games.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for the business items, unless you guys have any other questions or.
Nope. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 9, treasurer's items A through C.
Motion to approve 9A through C.
Second?
Mr. Jones?
Donations, we always appreciate those. Attached is the certificate of estimated resources and appropriations for FY22, kind of bringing all the budget in line with actual. And then also the temporary appropriations, so we can start spending money July 1st. People want to get paid. So I appreciate you to approve all those for me, please.
Any questions? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes. Item 10, superintendent items.
So we'll start with the disappointing news. So as you know, we've been working, Rick and I, for the last at least 18 months with Reynoldsburg City Schools on the potential territory transfer through the Eastwood properties on Route 40. As time has shifted and evolved and the parcels have been divided up, we had to go back to get new signatures for the 75% of the current parcel owners. And this time, they kind of grouped together and said, I'll sign if you'll sign, sort of mentality. Well, when they asked for information on the taxes, it would be an increase for them to shift to Southwest Licking Schools over Reynoldsburg. So now they have declined to sign off on us to file with ODE. So the only thing really we have left to do to even try, we are going to go back to ODE because when we initially filed the petition with ODE, we did have all of the owner's signatures. And that's when Reynoldsburg kept rotating through superintendents. And so therefore we will continue to be put on the back burner and asked to wait and wait and wait. So we are going to, the attorneys are going to try with ODE and see if they'll even consider the fact that when we did file initially, we had what we needed, but you know, in legal being really honest, she said if the you know, the owners aren't interested, the parcel owners aren't interested, Reynoldsburg's not interested, it makes our argument, you know, weaker and weaker. Yeah. So
So the owners aren't interested even though their taxes will go up.
the other way,
the
like
town-
they'll pay more.
Yeah, they pay more, so it wasn't much, it was like $1,900 a year per $1 million evaluation. But according to them, it was gonna be $1 million increase. Well, they're gonna sell, all they're gonna do is subdivide it and sell lots, and it's gonna be the future owners, so, but unfortunately, we are where we're at.
Yeah.
Even though
So
I tried to
that's,
say long-term, we'll probably will be higher because we are growing and
Right.
Reynoldsburg's built out. We're growing, but that didn't work.
so I'll keep you updated if it was like a Hail Mary works, but I feel like we're kind of running at the end of, it just is what it is
Yep.
at this
Unfortunate,
point. So,
but it is what it is.
Not for a lack of Rick and I not trying, but I feel like Reynoldsburg really put us in a bad position over that time period. That's just my personal opinion. Not that it meant ODE would definitely side with us, but I felt like we had more momentum when we had the parcel owner signatures. So that's that update. I also wanted to let you know that I know recently Bob went to testify, to talk to the state about having to put in restrooms at the athletic facilities. So we found out today that we've been given 2 years to remedy that situation. Now, they did say at the end of those 2 years, we can apply for an extension for the restrooms. In the meantime, we'll have porta potties, which was the initial plan. So I feel comfortable with 2 years. It gives us time to plan and figure out how to add those on. So at least it buys us time as opposed to no occupancy of the fields
Right.
immediately, which would put us a little bit more in a bind. I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
No, I think that's everything. That's exactly, we're going to check into it, just kind of see how many restrooms we have to have and stuff, but yeah,
So
we have a
that's-
couple years.
That. I did want to kind of just give everybody, I don't have a ton of information right now, but the Pataskala Advisory Group has met twice. Based on our last meeting, I'm having conversations and meetings with, Mike and I met with CTEC last week. We'll be meeting with the ESC next week. So very preliminary. There are some concerns based on touring, kind of the layout of the building. You know, there's some structural concerns. So regardless, we're going to continue to work with them, see where we come, and then we'll be going back to that committee with the information we find. And once we get sort of a resolution or some ideas, we'll come back to the board as a whole to present or share those. But I did want to let you know that's a work in progress right now. The concession stand is almost finished, so that's very exciting. I don't know if you've been out there or if you've seen that recently, but it looks really nice. So that should be done shortly. And then the fencing is set to start in a couple of weeks. They were just waiting on a few things to come in, but that they promised to have that done before the first game. So that should all be set to go.
And also, the WMAA is going to hold their July meeting at the pavilion and allow anyone that is interested to take a look-see of the new concession.
Good idea.
That's great. And then I do have one more. Do you want to pop anything up, Jeff, for me? I did want to give you just a little brief. So we finally have our enrollment, the long-awaited enrollment. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to share, which I thought this was really interesting. So obviously in working with cooperative strategies, it's nice to see what they project versus what actually happens. And so this is from the 21-22 school year. So you can see the actual amount of students compared to the recommended, and then their difference of -22. So and you can look down there in the classes, and you can see where, you know, some numbers are a little higher. The kindergarten band is the one I've been talking about with you guys consistently, where it was a little puzzling at first. It seems like we lose a chunk of kids in kindergarten to area churches, Christian schools, and then they come here in first grade. So it looks like Cooperative Strategies, based on what you'll see next, has started adapting their numbers and looking at that as well. So they're pretty close, pretty spot on. This was this school year, so you'll see a difference of 15 in total. The 7th grade would be the one little kind of a difference of almost 20 kids, but you know, overall their predictions, you know, are fairly close and accurate, and I think they've been really helpful as we start planning for classes and teachers. So that's last year, or this year, I'm sorry. Okay, so this takes a look at some historical enrollment of the course of the last 10 years. So what this shows you is just how you're going to see we were kind of just slowly increasing by very few kids, and then, you know, then as of, you know, I can't read that year from here, but the last 5 years, we've steadily been increasing. Over the course of the span of 10 years, you'll notice it's an increase of 928 kids. That's what's shown there on the graph, but you'll notice the bulk of them are coming from the last 5 years in this school district. So then that brings us to our current enrollment projections. And so obviously when you're following a class, you're following it diagonally on down. Projected this year, you know, 4,881, that's butts and seats. The grand total takes out some of our kids that are outside placed. You know, some parents that choose open enrollment other places. And then if you'll look down there at the end for in 10 years, where they're predicting, well actually 9 at this point, 5,752 students, which is another 871. And this is based on whenever Cooperative Strategies gives you their enrollment, they give you those 3 tiers, almost like a low, medium, and high. And so we always fall in the recommended. We tend to stray away from looking at the mature or the lowest tier, and this is kind of in the middle. And that's where they seem to fall pretty spot on in their projections as well. So as we talk about, you know, future growth and buildings and preparation, these are the numbers we're going to continue to utilize, and as we continue working with Cooperative Strategies. So then we look at student yields, which I find this to be interesting as well. So the little chart on the bottom shows you kind of how many per the different housing type, how many students come from that housing. The multifamily is in gray because that's where they're doing a lot of predictions based on some of the housing that's coming. So that number, you know, they're saying that's one we're going to watch, and that could change over the next couple of years. A few things to note that are interesting that you won't see here on that little chart, but that are in all of the documents that they create. We have more people that are moving out of the district, whether they be older families, and they're being replaced with families with kids. So that's, you know, something we're seeing in our housing. Which I think is going to lead to additional turnover in future years. We're going to continue to see that trend. We also have a greater amount of people moving out after graduation. In talking to them, it seems like their take is that a lot of people are here for the schools, and then maybe they choose other opportunities for better taxes and other, you know, maybe relocating or after their kids graduate. So they're noticing a lot of that too in their trend data, as opposed to when you sometimes see that people that, you know, they stay here their entire through retirement. And, you know, additionally, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now I know you can't read this, but I was trying. There's a point to be made here. These are our 23 subdivisions that are currently in various stages. You can see some have estimated completions because Ellington's down there and it's winding down. Some are, you know, timelines unavailable. Some have the completion dates on there. And then obviously it talks about units per, what type of housing, maximum enrollment, and mature enrollment. And so this is obviously what I'm watching greatly, what we're looking at, and we'll be using. This is a piece of the information we'll also utilize when planning where kids are going to go in the redistricting. So these are all our current developments, which is going to bring us, if you look at the mature end, 2,255 students. So that's the highest end of what we could get from all 23 of those subdivisions coming into the district. I put there in the middle that High Point and Forest Ridge. So High Point is the Route 70 project coming in with the multifamily apartments, townhouses, single-family homes, potentially some businesses, and that's projected to bring 251 kids. And then Forest Ridge, down off of 310, the old Van Diegel property, right behind Scenic View, is projected to bring 212. Not kids, sorry, housing units, not students. 251 housing units, 212 housing units. So those two right there are going to be a substantial amount of students into this district as they both go up. And then if you looked at just the maximum enrollment for these 23 subdivisions and what is adding to our current, in 2058, obviously none of us will be sitting here, but 7,000, a little over 7,000 students. So there's a lot coming from a lot of subdivisions and probably more to come. We also have 12,779 acres of undeveloped land. So, you're looking at 23 subdivisions and you're thinking what's to come. I broke that down on the top and the bottom versus what actually is adjacent to existing infrastructure. So your water, your sewer versus what's not. So obviously a little over 5,000 acres or 2,369 potential housing lots that are pretty much ready to go and developed if a developer came in and it went through the appropriate channels. So this is something that we'll continue to watch, we'll continue to work with cooperative strategies on because that's could be coming as well. And so then what's next or what are we thinking? So obviously we need to continue every year to look at the enrollment trends. We need to work with all the local government entities on incoming developments. The more information we have, the better we can plan. So when we have those relationships with the townships and the cities and they're willing to work with us, it's helpful. Annual growth studies and continued preparation for capacity issues, which brings me to my next thing. We are at 85 capacity, currently 85% in all of our buildings, some more so than others. We obviously are having a lot more growth on the western side of the district. So Etna, for example, the core classrooms at Etna are already out at, we built for 6 apiece or remodeled, that's where they're at, they're already full. There's room if we had to move people around, but as far as like the cores classrooms. So what else do we need to do next? We need to begin the conversations in the process of unfortunately redistricting. With the new elementary coming on Watkins Road, we're gonna have to figure out where everyone's going. Again, a lot of the growth is coming on the western side, so that's gonna make things challenging for Kirkersville when we move back to that building. So there you go. What questions did you have? It's a lot of information.
So you'll be able to share this presentation with us?
I'll share this with you, and then I'm happy to share, just because I think it's fascinating, you might want to look through it, I will share all of cooperative strategy stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then
I'd
you
love
can
to
kind
see
of
that.
look through all of it. It's a lot, but it's really interesting. And I will share this with you guys as well.
All right.
It's interesting when you're at the townships and their meetings and you're listening to developers and they talk about the townhomes and it's not going to bring in that many people. It's almost basically the same as single family home.
Yeah. So it's coming. So I will share all that with you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right. Item 11, request to speak on non-agenda items, Teamsters or Southwest Looking Education. Okay. And then our closing item, I can't scroll down, so I assume it's adjournment.
It is. I motion adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned at 7:38 p.m.
Nope, gotta vote.
Oh, wait, we have to vote. See, I'm sorry.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Spindler.
Yes. Now we're adjourned at 7:39 p.m.